welcome back to the LA Reads podcast. We're your hosts, Abby
and Leighton, and this is season 2, episode 4.
Woo!
It wasn't silent this time, you know?
I just need to stop doing that. The reason why it was silent in the last episode was because I went to go woo, and then I was like, I've done that for the past 2 episodes. I shouldn't do it again.
I saw you do it, and I thought I cut you off, so I really stopped and said, okay, you can go now.
Yeah, no,
Make the woo sound.
I need to figure out something else to do. But regardless, this week we are going to be talking about all things writing. We did an episode like this last season. I about said semester.
Yeah.
Season. But we wanted to do a little update on our writing. For those of you who don't know, me and Leighton have both been working on writing books. Books is in plural.
Yes.
Ish, because we jump around a lot. But before we do that, we haven't got together in the past 2 weeks. So in the past 2 weeks, what have you read?
Oh my gosh, this is so sad. And I think we're having a little bit of a role reversal right now because I can see kind of how many books Abby's read. And usually I feel like I would be the one to be like, in 2 weeks, I've read 14 books. No. I am in a reading slump still, trying to figure out how to navigate it. I'm hoping Onyx Storm will get me out of said reading slump.
Or it's going to put you in a worse one.
Yes. But for the time being, I read 2 books. And one of them was Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, which is the 3rd book in the Way of Kings series. And granted, these books are 1,500 pages plus.
Yeah.
So they're huge.
You're definitely, I'm like, let's remind ourselves that I've been reading like 300-page romance books, not 1,500-page fantasy books. So
I will say I did rate Words of Radiance, the 2nd book, 5 stars, and Oathbringer, the 3rd book, maybe 3 stars.
No way.
It's just, there's kind of 3 main characters, and they decided to hyperfixate on the one main character that I don't really care for the entire book, as well as do a past-present timeline, so now I have to deal with his backstory.
Oh, I'm not a fan of the backstory, like
Me too.
going back in time past storylines. I don't like it, especially if I've already been reading in the present / like future. Like, I don't like going back. Like, it feels like I'm backtracking. That's why I like reading Assassin's Blade first.
Yes, 100% agree. And so I did make it through that. However, now I am hesitant to start Rhythm of War. But in order to get through that, I did read Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood for the 3rd time. Just because I needed a palate cleanser book that I knew I could read in one day. And I already own the audiobook. Put it on 1.8 speed, started it at 3, finished it at 9.
It was a great day.
Yes, and it was like a nice brain break.
Yes.
From epic fantasy. So.
I can't imagine my brain. My sister-in-law gave me her login for her Audible because she has all of the Way of Kings series books on there. So I'm going to start that eventually, but not right now because we have Onyx Storm coming. So everything that I do in the next 2 weeks are revolved around Onyx Storm. Therefore, Brandon Sanderson doesn't really fit into that equation. So
yes, you need 2 months dedicated just to him.
Yes.
Which is hard.
Don't know if we got that in us. Okay. I have been on a reading kick, so I feel like I've kind of read a lot. At least for me, I've never read this much within the span of a week or 2 weeks or whatever, but I read the Renegade series, which is by Rebecca Yarros. So it's Wilder, and then Nova, and then Rebel. They're all really good.
Oh my gosh, that is not where I thought you were gonna say you reread Renegades by Marissa Meyer.
No.
I thought you hated that.
The book is called The Renegades, and the Renegades series, and the book is about these kids, these college kids that are a part of this extreme sports group called the Renegades.
Yikers.
So they do all of these stunts and motocross stuff. Anyways, and they go on this year at sea schooling, and while they're traveling the world, they're planning all these stunts and filming a documentary. And the first one is she goes on this year at sea schooling to be the main guy's tutor. So it's tutor thing. And then Nova is this girl. No, sorry. Nova is one of the guys in the group, and then anyways, it follows them. That was too many details, but yeah, it's pretty good. It was not too bad. I actually really liked it. And then I read Girl in Love and Boy in Love. I listened to them. I didn't like them.
Ooh. I would say when I read them, I liked them. I would not go recommending them necessarily, but I enjoyed my time.
I liked Girl in Love. I did not like Boy in Love. Here's the thing, though, is that Girl in Love and Boy in Love she co-wrote, and I thought that was weird. I don't know how it was necessarily split up, but I was just like already not a fan that she had like co-wrote it. And then Boy in Love, I just didn't like it because I just felt like it was so smutty in the sense of like there was a lot of spicy scenes, but like the plot was just dumb. Like nothing was actually happening. They just were basically like, I want to be with you, but I can't be with you, and then we're gonna have a grand old time, and then I can't be with you, but I want to be with you, and it just felt like that kept happening over and over again, and I was kind of sick of it. So wasn't my fave. But then I read my last Rebecca Yarros book, Cries, which was Reason to Believe. Not a single person has ever talked about it, but it was so cute. And she's supposed to be writing more in this series, so I'm wondering if it's going to come out this year, because I'm assuming that she's had a habit of writing a romance book in between each of the Fourth Wing books.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's what she's going to do next or not, but it was actually pretty good. And then I read The Stopover.
I love the Miles High series.
It was really good. I need to start the next one, but the books are so long. Yeah, because the next one is, what's it called?
The Takeover.
Yes, The Takeover.
Oh
Wait, is that the one with the kids?
Yes.
Okay.
I couldn't. 3 kids that are old.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I need to read that, but I've been reading. I told myself I needed to finish just for the summer. So, and then I re-listened to Twisted Love because I said, why not? It just got announced as a book series, or as they're gonna do a TV series. So I was like, I'll listen to it. Because also I haven't read the Twisted series since it was like one of my first romance books. So I'm like,
yeah,
what do I think of these now? And it was fine. Definitely, interesting. Alex Volkov is not my taste, but you know,
I will say
enjoy.
The Twisted series. You just gotta go in knowing like, technically it's reality, but like, it's not at all.
No.
And just embrace it for how unhinged it actually is. It's giving somewhat telenovela energy.
Yes.
And you just got to be okay with that and just go with the flow and be like, all right, yep, now we're billionaires and we're 20 and we're killing people. And
sounds great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's all I read though. It's been good. I really haven't done a whole lot. But I also just because I got my sister-in-law's Audible. She has a bunch of books, so I'm like, oh, we're gonna start probably listen. Yeah, we're gonna start cooking, so I'm excited. But this week we wanted to talk about writing. So I guess first off is recap. What were you working on / what are you working on now?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. Okay, I have 2 books that I've had these ideas forever. Like probably freshman year of college, maybe senior year of high school, and that was like 6 years ago, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, we're old.
Yeah, we're old now. But the first one is a college cheer romance book that is heavily inspired by the Windy City series or the Campus Diary series. Those are 2 series that I enjoy very much and really look up to, both Liz Tom Ford and Elle Kennedy. I would love to be able to write as well as them one day.
I know.
So it would be new adult romance, and an interconnected standalone. Currently, I have it set for 4, maybe 5 books.
A queen.
Which is crazy because I can't even write one. So maybe we should just write the first one.
We shoot for the stars here, okay?
Yes. And then the second book is going to be what I thought was going to be a YA fantasy series until I spoke to Abby. And she said, girl, that's so complicated. Maybe you need to up it to an adult fantasy series. But when I say adult fantasy, it is not a Brandon Sanderson book.
No.
It is I
would say Sarah J. Maas style, like writing style.
Oh,
a little bit easier to
girl, yeah.
A lot easier to understand, but there's still like a lot going on and like good plotting.
Very complex magic system that still to this day just befuddles me sometimes, and I forget half the rules of it, and then I go back and look at a chapter and say, I don't even think that's possible. Like, that's crazy behavior. But for the romance one, I'm about 50 or 60,000 words into it. However, I'm so over writing because I have it split into 3 parts. And that is the end of part 1, the beginning of part 2.
Oh, that's long.
Yeah, which I am now realizing this book needs to be like, what, 80,000 words, 90,000 words?
I would say 100,000 is probably like, because I think 100,000 words equates to, I mean, depending on how big you write the text and stuff, or the text is printed, it ends up being like 300 to 350 pages. So I mean, I was thinking at that 100,000.
Yeah, because I definitely want it to be like 350 pages. I do not want to be writing a 400 plus page romance book. And then my fantasy series, I am about 25,000 words into, because I realize romance comes much more naturally when writing than fantasy. But
yeah, I have been kind of in the same boat. So I've talked about this a lot, but so I have a fantasy series that basically kind of similar to how Leighton is. Of I have had this idea in my head since I was literally in high school, and it's called the Wandering Star series. And I have gone through a lot of work to figure out how to get this book in a good place, essentially. And I had interest. I had some people interested in the book, like editors and stuff from some publishers that were interested in the book, and so I was like trying to but they told me to like try and find an editor, like a freelance editor, to help me. So I did that, and I went through that whole process. But I don't want to say it was discouraging, but like it kind of was, because I felt like I was finally getting it to a good place. And then we met a second time, and she was like, well, you still need to change all these things, and a lot of these things still don't make sense. And I was like, okay. So I kind of like stopped working on it for a while, and then I, for some reason, got the urge to like just basically sit down and like plot it out. I think it was after we did like a retreat with the I'll Read What She's Reading, and we talked to Taryn, shout out Taryn, who is a queen and is a writing machine and is doing all the greatest things. We were talking to her about writing, and I think that kind of inspired me to sit down and like replot it and be like, okay, from beginning to end, what are like the main plots that are gonna like happen? So I did that. So it's like it's completely structured and ready to go. I started rewriting it again for like basically the third or fourth time I've done this, and I got like 20,000 words into like a rewrite, which I want to clarify. When I say rewrite, a lot of it also is like, yes, rewriting, but then there's also a lot too where I'm like copying and pasting scenes that I've already written, and then I'm just like kind of reworking them. Anyways, but I got to that point and I just was like, I have done this so many flippin' times. I'm kind of sick of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, I really love the idea, but I was like, I think that I need to take a step back and maybe work on writing something else that is going to be a little bit more obtainable, I think, for me. And if I really do want to publish, I think that it would be better to start with something a little bit more chill. Because also I was like, do I really want this fantasy book series that I love so much, that I think is really, really good, like a really good concept and idea? Do I really want to like waste my very first time publishing on that, when I know if I were to publish a couple other things or like do more writing in other areas first, that then I could come back to this project later and it would be probably a lot better. Like, and then so yeah, so I do have I have two romance books that I've had. I have one called The Heart Girls, which we had talked about.
Yes.
And that one is like a YA romance, kind of very similar to like Boys of Toman series style, and it's the same thing. It's a series, so it was like, and it's really easy to plot out. It was like it's plotted for 4 books and like 4 different couples and stuff. But even that, like I was looking at that and I was like, I think I need something even more simple. So I have come up with an idea for a standalone 1 book.
Oh, what a wonderful idea.
I know, it was great. And it doesn't have a name yet because I don't know what to call it. I think I was messing with the title, because the title literally means nothing. But I think I was messing with the name of, I already forgot what it was. So apparently it wasn't very good. The thing, I can't remember. But I've been writing that, and I've written, I think, like, maybe 10,000 words. So it's not like anything crazy, but it's
you're
like
so fast.
I've been doing absolutely nothing with my life, sitting, and so I mean it wasn't that. I mean that equates to like 2,000 words a day over like the span of like 2 weeks.
That is true.
Almost
When I
over less.
When I
in a
write
week.
romance, I feel like I can get in that range of like
Yeah.
1,500, maybe even up to like 2,500
Yes.
words a day. But fantasy, it's like if we hit 700 words, we're on fire.
No, that's so true. And I have been trying because like you said, I do have a habit of writing really fast, but I've been trying to actually write slower because I'm like, I think I need to do this as close to the right way as possible the first time, because that's been my issue with the Wandering Stars series is I'm like, I've written this so many flippin' times, I'm sick of it, and I don't want to keep writing this anymore. Like, I've written this same exact scene 4 different ways, and I'm like, I'm kind of over it.
Yeah,
you know?
it is true because people will always preach, the first draft is just like a brain dump.
Yeah.
Like, just write whatever, it doesn't matter, which sometimes I think I need to take a little bit of
Yes.
lessons from that because I'm somebody that I have such a like high standard for perfection. I try to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
When it's like you don't really even know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Until you have it all on paper. But I do think it's good to like try for that to a certain extent so then you don't have to completely.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, and so, but it's been nice because it's just so easy. Like it just like it I just know like I don't have to worry about like putting in Easter eggs anywhere else. I don't have to like worry about like anything like that. So it's been very like refreshing. I have to look at it because now it's gonna bother me that I can't think of what the name is called that I had started calling
what
it.
is the premise? Is it sports romance? Is it
No, it's so a lot of the inspiration stems from what's her face? Rebecca Yarros. If you've read The Things We Leave Unfinished, it's just like normal people style, and basically the premise is she is a girl who lives in New York City, loves art, works at is a waitress in New York, and then she gets a call, and her sister that she hasn't talked to in 5 years, she gets a call saying that her sister passed away and that she has to take custody of her sister's twins that she didn't know existed. So she moves to a small town in North Carolina called Hollow Hills, and she has to basically take custody of these 2 twins. But she also meets their what they call uncle, but he was one of Scarlett's, which is her sister's, friends. And he's trying to co-parent with her because he's trying to get custody of the twins. So they're kind of like battling it out, but like also trying to like make parenting work because Scarlett had given her like the rights to her kids. So
wait, Scarlett's the
sister that died. Yeah,
that is also my niece's name.
If only you knew. That's the name I was thinking of.
If only you knew.
They both have like, and then it's one of those where it's like they both kind of have secrets about their past that then end up leading to them being very intertwined. It's very good. It's a little bit more emotional. Like it's definitely a more like emotional romance. It's not like a rom-com by any means, but yeah. I'd have to tell you more about it later, but if I say anything else, it spoils it. So
okay.
But it has a good twist at the end. So that was why I was like, oh, this would be a good idea. And also because I was like, I want to write something that I feel like I can relate to in life. And Reason to Believe by Rebecca Yarros was when I read, and it was after I read that book, because in that book they take in like these 2 foster kids, and I was like, well, I was like, that's honestly a really cute premise, and I have a lot of experience with foster kids, so I was like, that'd be kind of fun to write about. So that's where we're going. It's not too bad. It's kind of fun.
Oh, fun. Okay. Question though.
Yeah.
From Wandering Stars to your now Heart Girls / thing.
If you only knew.
If you only knew.
Yeah.
Are you still like an outline, like hard outline, soft outline, brain dump and just let it happen?
Soft outline.
Soft
outline in the sense of like I get a grip of the characters, and then I like writing the like first like chapter, and like because in that first chapter you're kind of like building out, like my first chapter of her is like her like building out like where does she live currently? What does she do? And when I was writing that first chapter, that was when I was like, oh, she works at this restaurant that she's in, and like so I kind of like almost like write the first chapter to like kind of build out what her life was like. So the first I feel like I write the first few chapters to like get a good idea of like who these characters are, what their motives are, what their secrets are, what that kind of thing. but it's pretty soft. Like, and then I always know where it's gonna end for the most part. Like, I feel like I always know, like, I know exactly what the plot twist at the end is going to be and what that looks like. So, I mean, I think it's just more of like a soft, but I don't, anything in between, characters keep popping up and I'm like, oh, hello there, you're new. Like,
Yeah.
it's very like soft outlining.
Okay, see, I agree and disagree because for my romance series,
Yeah.
I did an outline. I did a chapter outline, so I knew exactly what was going to happen in every chapter.
Yeah.
But it was more like 3 to 5 bullet points of like, these are 3 main points I want to hit in this chapter.
Mhm.
And then that was it. And
Yeah.
I scripted maybe like 45 chapters.
Yeah.
And as I have been writing it, not everything comes to fruition in that chapter, so I'll have to rework the outline. But I feel like it gives me a really good sense of what's the beginning, what's exactly going to be in the middle, and what's going to be at the end.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, for my fantasy book,
or for the romance book,
that was for the romance book.
Yeah.
For my fantasy book, I have an over 50-page outline.
That's literally insane.
Like, overview, structure, magic system, like, not plot holes in the magic system. What do you call those? Like, exceptions to the magic system.
Yeah.
Characters, character outlines, chapter outlines, story outlines.
Like, it's all there.
Backstory, yes. And I feel like I couldn't write without it. Because I feel like I'm constantly referring back to it.
Oh, with fantasy, I have a harder outline. Obviously, I literally basically wrote out chapter by chapter what was going to happen, or at least like chapter-ish by chapter what was going to happen. I feel like with fantasy, it's harder to not have an outline because if you have to go back and fix one thing in a fantasy book, it changes so much.
Domino effect.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like with a romance book, it's like, oh, it's like, what are you going to change? You're going to change his career now so it fits a little bit better with the plot twist at the end. It's like, okay, you're changing a couple lines. Like, it's not as big of like a deal to, I feel like, have to go back and change things in a romance book within the plotting. Whereas like in a fantasy book, you're like, well, that's going to change literally all of these different plot lines and these storylines. And now I can't do this storyline, you know, and it's an ugly look.
Yes. I will say, this is kind of random as well, but as I've been reading, I've been thinking about my current outlines, and there are some things in the new year that I do want to change.
Oh, do tell.
So for my romance book, it's written very similar to like what is trendy on TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit more spice, a little... I don't even know how to describe it, but recently I've become a really big fan of Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez, things like that are a little bit more of a slow burn and maybe not so trendy or like littered with pop culture and things like that. And I think I do want to go back and kind of change to that writing style or
more
see
of like that tone almost.
Yeah, see if that's something that I could do, because that's something that I feel like I would put out and honestly be like, hey, family, read this.
Yeah.
This would be really good. Where on the other hand, I feel
confident in this.
Yeah. On the other hand, I'd be like, family, don't listen to this.
Yeah.
Don't read this, whatever. And then same with fantasy. I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I've been reading a lot of Brandon Sanderson, and he's very direct.
Yeah.
Like, he does not take the time for like these over the top metaphors and similes and
cursive
flowery
writing.
language that like just takes so much brain power for you to then read it and be like, and what am I even saying? Like, I'm trying so hard to be profound and out of the box that I'm now just making it hard to understand. So I do want to go back and rewrite kind of, just rework kind of the phrasing and everything to be a little bit more direct and take out some of those try hard moments. And I do think that would probably fit my book a lot better.
Well, I feel like it's true because it's like whenever you're like, I feel like when you're writing, whatever you're reading, I feel like that's what's going to inspire you. Like, I feel like when I'm in a kick of like reading a lot of fantasy, I get more motivated to work on Wandering Stars. But because I've been reading more romance, I think that was what's been motivating me more to write romance. Like, you're definitely always pulling inspiration from what you're writing or what you're reading. I mean, because it's so much easier to see the bigger picture. I feel like when you're reading the things that you're writing than it is when you're like, let me write this huge fantasy book, but I'm gonna keep reading these romance books that have absolutely nothing to do and I'm gaining no inspiration from. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to like cross with that, I feel like. But that does bring up the point, because this was a huge thing. Obviously, for those of you who have seen on Book Talk, there is just so much discourse and drama about plagiarism versus like building inspiration and getting inspiration from people's work. Because at the end of the day, like, books are all kind of just copies of each other, especially in romance, because I'm like, there's only so many tropes that can go around in a romance book, okay? And I'm like, but there was so much issues because people feel like Powerless is a plagiarized book of Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and then people have been making just outrageous comments. It's kind of past now, but this was like happened like a month ago. What are like your feelings towards like, and like how are you doing with like feeling this like line of like building inspiration but also like not plagiarism, like, and not crossing into that line, especially with romance?
Oh, that's such a hard question, because honestly, I see both sides of the argument. For me, what I feel really good about my romance book, because obviously, even in this episode, I've thrown out Elle Kennedy, Liz Tom Ford, Abby Jimenez, Emily Hen, all people that I'm very inspired by, that also, you know, I want to be very mindful of not copying their work, is I feel like the idea of my romance book is very original. Where it is a college cheer romance, which personally I have never read.
No, I've never read.
I've only...
The Dixon Rule is the closest.
Yeah, I've sometimes read a book where the FMC for a romance book is a college cheerleader, but what I really want to set apart in my book is having cheered for 18 years of my life.
Yeah.
I know the intricacies, as well as we are not doing the hooray... game day cheer. We are doing the elite level competition cheer that a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes of. I think the closest thing people have probably seen is the cheer documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
So definitely more inspired by that. And actually, when I just read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood, something I loved about her book so much is there is so much niche, like, chess jargon.
See, that's lovely.
I know she knows so much about chess. Like, she talks about different approaches, different escapes you can do, all this. And as somebody who doesn't know anything about chess, I just love to know that she knows so much about it.
No, that's so true.
So I want to convey that same feeling. But that being said, I feel like it's not bad to look at a book and say, like, I love Funny Story by Emily Henry. And I want to write in a similar way, not copy her, but like, she has such an amazing tone and a way of conveying real people that I want to be able to emulate. So I'm going to read her books and be inspired by that. I don't think that's bad, as long as you have the originality of an idea to go along.
Yeah, well, and again, because it's like we're all creating different characters. So yeah, maybe like, you know, my book is gonna have this concept of, you know, she gains custody of these kids. Wild Side is an example of a book that's coming out that has that trope. I got this idea from Reason to Believe, which is they foster these two kids. Like, there are multiple books that come out with that have that same concept, but I have new characters that have different storylines, that have different paths, that are going to make the story different. So like, at the end of the day, like, I don't really feel like that's like necessarily plagiarism, because yeah, you're gaining inspiration for a trope or a concept, but like, it's gonna be completely different. And that's why I don't, the Powerless and Red Queen stuff was so interesting to me, because when you do break it down, there are a lot of things that are very similar, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe that was similar, but then Reckless is completely different than Glass Sword. It's not like she's copying the story. Like, she just, her characters went on a journey that was really similar to Red Queen's, I feel like, in the first book, and then, but now their journey is completely different, because she wrote different characters. She wrote different stories. Like, they're not the same concept. So I don't know. It's a very, but I do feel like it is a hard line to draw, especially when you're like writing and you're like, can I do that? Because I feel like I've read like 4 books that have the same exact line or the same exact like concept in them. I'm like,
Well, even to think about, like, your book, Wandering Stars, is a very star-themed book.
Yeah.
Another very star-themed book is Zodiac Academy.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact you've never even read Zodiac
No,
Academy.
I didn't read it at all. Cause I did it on purpose. Cause I didn't want to I wanted to make sure I wasn't, like, subconsciously, like, taking anything.
Yeah. But even that being said, there's probably going to be some similarities, and it's inevitable that that's going to happen. Because even as somebody who hasn't even read the book.
Well, because that's the thing, too, is, like, it does happen. Because, I mean, when you think about it, like, especially when you're doing fantasy, too, it's like you're researching kind of the same things. Like, I was, looking up star stuff and whatever, and I wanted there to be, like, a fated mates thing, and it be called Starbound, and I'm sitting there thinking I'm a genius, and I'm like, Leighton, listen to this idea, and she's like, they say that in Zodiac Academy, that's what they call it, and I'm like, you've got to be joking.
Yeah, I think it may be star-crossed, but it was something very similar.
Oh, if it's not Starbound, I'm taking that then.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? But yeah, I was like, okay. And then the main, like, villains in Wandering Stars are called the Stygian. And I'm just going about my day. I just, like, had been doing my research, and I found that there was this word that meant darkness. And I was like, perfect. Goes perfect with these evil, dark, shadowed villains that I'm making. I'm like, and it sounds so evil. I'm like, it's perfect. Yeah. Reading SJM for the first time. Stygian spiders, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Yes. I was like, okay. So it does happen a lot where it was like I wasn't trying to copy anyone. It's just Google is the same for everyone that is involved. Like, there are things that are going to start crossing over no matter what you're doing, especially if you're writing books that are very similar. Like, now there's been multiple things, not to toot my own horn, but there has been multiple things just because my books have to do with stars, and then Sarah J. Maas has some things that do with stars as well. Mm-hmm. There's been some overlap of, like, she has character names that I'm like, oh, that was a name of one of my characters, like, and things like that. It's just, you're researching the same things. There's not much to go off of sometimes.
Yeah, especially for my fantasy book, a big part of it is alchemy.
Yeah.
And alchemy is a, medieval practice that was real. And so I've been doing a lot of research on that, and I'm sure there are books out there that also have alchemy that have the same foundation, because we're basing it off of real world beliefs. And I'm sure then if you looked at them side by side, it would be like, oh, well, your magic system looks kind of similar.
Yeah.
But once again, we're all looking at the same history.
But it's like the same concept where it's like people are like, oh, people are copying Sarah J. Maas with, like, the Fae characters and stuff. And I'm like, well, she didn't make up the Fae.
Oh, the Fae have been around.
Yeah, I'm like, they've been around. Like, those are mystical creatures that already existed. Like, she's not like, no one's copying anyone. Those already exist with already their, like, set beliefs of, like, they can't lie. And, like, that wasn't something that an author made up. I mean, at some point, because it is, like, from, like, a mystical creature fable. But, like, they're all based off of the same basic information.
Yeah, not trying to be that person because cannot confirm publication dates. But I'm pretty sure Cassandra Clare was releasing her Mortal Instruments series and things like that before Sarah J. Maas was.
Does her books have the Fae in it?
Yeah. Yeah, they're
I know nothing about her
surrounded
books.
by the Fae, and they have the beliefs of the Fae can't lie, and there's a whole Fae realm, and there's a Fae king, and then there's the Under King. All of that, and once again, cannot confirm dates, but at least for me,
Cassandra Clare's are old. I wouldn't be surprised.
I feel like she was early 2000s.
Yeah, then
and
I
don't think
before.
Sarah J. Maas.
I think
Sarah J. Maas. I think is
published
like
2010.
Yeah, I want to say Sarah J. Maas was like 2010s ish, and yeah, Cassandra Clare was definitely around. But that's not to say Sarah J. Maas copied Cassandra Clare. That's to say the Fae or other things in general are just sometimes topics people use. Yeah. There's topics that people use more than other people. Right?
No, definitely. And okay, so Throne of Glass was published in 2012 in Mortal Instruments.
Okay, 2012. I'm gonna guess 2006 for the first book of the Mortal Instruments series.
What's the first book called?
City of Bones. And she goes especially into Fae in her Dark Artifices series as well.
Sorry, it's trying to show me the TV series and stuff.
Oh, there's TV series and a movie of City of Bones that both kind of flopped.
It was originally published in 2007.
See?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
No, definitely. So I don't know. It is hard because it's like I do feel like there can be a fine line, but it's not like anyone's sitting down being like, oh, that person used this, so I'm gonna use it too, and I'm gonna copy exactly what they said. Like unless you're doing that, I feel like you're not crossing that line. I feel like.
Yeah, and I think once again, the thing that's really important, at least that I see, is just having somewhat of a unique idea. I know people get a little bit more concerned when the idea is pretty similar,
Yeah.
but you can have the same foundation sometimes or same structure points and still make it unique to yourself.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. What do you feel like is like the biggest? What are like the things in your romance and or fantasy book that you're like, this is a must have to happen? Like whether it's a trope or like just a certain scene where you're like, this will happen. I don't care what.
Oh my gosh, I don't even. I mean, I have some things that I love. For example, my fantasy book has trials in it.
Yeah.
It's, I could name 25 books off the top of my head that have trials in it. And
Yes.
I love that trope. And so, sorry, it's going to happen. Am I going to have to navigate it kind of uniquely to make sure that the trials are a little bit unique and not something that you just see all the time?
Yeah.
Yes, that is going to be a challenge that I personally put on myself because I'm not changing the fact that there's trials in there. So that's definitely going to happen. I also am a really big fan of just prolonged fight scenes with competent women. So, I mean, we see a lot of that, obviously, in Sarah J. Maas. I think something very similar to, like, Nezra and Falk.
Oh,
because my characters kind of, they do have magic, but not necessarily a magic that they're going to be actively using within fighting.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I got to keep it kind of ambiguous. So, but I think we see that in books all the time. That's not anything new. I mean, those are the things that come to mind. I was really scared at first when I wanted to do trials because I knew the first thing I would hear right out of the gate is, this has already been done before.
Yes.
I'm like,
well, I also don't like it because there's a habit within like in the publishing world where now if you have like a deadly trials of some sort or a competition, they're like, this book is Hunger Games mixed with, and it's always comparative to Hunger Games, and you're like, this literally couldn't be any less like the Hunger Games at all, actually. So I think it's really interesting that I also feel like a lot of times people for some reason have like titled these certain tropes under these books where it's like, if you are having these deadly trials, this is exactly like Hunger Games. And it's like, Hunger Games didn't create that trope. Like, Hunger Games did not create the deadly trials. Why do we have to always compare those certain tropes to those books?
Hypothetically speaking, I mean, even if it did create the trope, if you use it in a broad sense of, I just want to do deadly trials and then I'm going to figure out a way to make it unique. Yeah. I feel like that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Also, did you see, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Because we've talked about this before where Brandon Sanderson has those, like, writing lectures online. He's coming out with new ones.
No way.
Yes, he's recording his lectures right now. Because he said he made a video about it today, actually. He posted it. And he was like, we like to revamp them every, like, few years. And he's like, so we're recording and posting them throughout the semester this month, or for this semester. And I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. Even though his class is very much like sci-fi and fantasy based, but also I'm like, maybe there'll be some new drops of wisdom in there that will be helpful even in just romance.
I feel like the thing Brandon Sanderson always teaches me in his lectures is just stop overthinking, girl. Like, just get to the point. Like, if you have an interesting plot, the writing will almost follow because people will be motivated to continue reading to figure out what the plot is. It's not like you need to have the most profound writing of all time. It's like, just get to the point and tell the story.
No, that was literally, I was thinking about this too, because sometimes I'm like, romance, I'm like, no, it has to be this like intricate thing. But I like literally every single romance I read, it's like the very first chapter is like, you know, I'm walking and I hear the screeching tires. My mind goes back a little bit and now I'm back. And it's like they're instantly like already hinting at these like things that you're like, is it going to end up being this big of a deal? Probably not. Yeah. It's going to be revealed in like, you know, middle of the book to their newfound love interest of this traumatic thing that happened in their past. But it's like, I think I always just think it's so cheesy, but I'm like, literally every single romance book is that way. It's like people will continue to read it. Like it's almost like you need those cheesy, like, oh my gosh, this gave me a flashback, but now I'm back. And like you just have those like little things in the beginning because everyone will just keep going because they like want to know what happens next, even if it's dumb.
Oh, it's kind of like I said, think in our episode before this, we were kind of talking about the Twisted series.
Oh, yeah.
That series is so unhinged, and you just
So
gotta
unhinged.
take it in stride. Like, you go in knowing it is absolutely unhinged and not realistic, but you can still have a good time with it.
No,
you know
for
what I mean?
sure. I know. So I'm in. That's like the one thing I think I have a harder time with writing romance than I do with fantasy is that I just feel like sometimes the romance I'm like, this is coming off so cheesy.
Yes.
But I'm like, but that's what it is.
And then I think about what I actually read, and I'm like, wow.
No, exactly.
I need to be nicer to myself.
What do you think is easier for you to write, dialogue or like the in between stuff? Is it easier for you to write like character descriptions? Like, what's like the easiest thing for you to write?
Weirdly specific fight scenes. I
wish.
I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but I genuinely surprise myself sometimes being like, dang, that fight scene was so good. It makes so much. I feel like I do a really good job of like spatial awareness and keeping track of where my characters are throughout the scene and making it really come full circle. But then the minute I get to dialogue, it's like just the loading sign in my brain. Got nothing to offer.
That's so funny. I wish I was good at writing fight scenes. I'm not. For some reason, I'm just not very good. I don't think I'm very good at descriptive wording, and so it's really hard for me to write fight scenes without having like a huge paragraph of like direction of where the characters are in between the like dialogue and like explanation of like what's actually happening. I'm not this. It's just a little choppy. It's just a little choppy.
So you think you're a dialogue person?
Oh, but I write dialogue all day long. A lot of times, I like when I am just like I'm not really feeling like writing. I will write an entire chapter with just the dialogue in it and then some like tags or like some like paragraphs in between of like what they're doing. But just because dialogue comes so much easier to me for some reason. And then I write the dialogue and then I'll go back and like fill in the blanks essentially.
See, I do that sometimes, but because dialogue doesn't come easy to me, that I will go through and I will just write the dialogue to make sure I have like the what exactly we need to learn from this scene and what to get out of it. And then I'll put it in and I'll say, okay, now I can go crazy with the
it's not a terrible way to go about it either. That's an interesting thought. It's like, are you going to get to the point at the end of this conversation? Because if not, then it can't happen.
Yeah, and especially because I wish I was just naturally super witty.
Yeah.
I'm not. Surprise. And so sometimes I literally have to sit and just like talk to myself over and over to get like one good comeback. And I'm like, wow, that took forever.
See, I don't think I'm very good at it, but then I go back and reread some of the things I've written and I'm like, wait, that was kind of awesome. Did you see the thing I sent you? You never responded.
I saw it today when I went to go look back at our messages and I said, what is this picture Abby sent me? And it was a page from her book. I was like, what?
I was so proud of myself. I don't even remember what what did I say? Because it's in my fantasy book because I was rereading some things and like reworking some of the chapters. I tried to write maybe a chapter a week just to like keep it going. But the thing I sent Leighton without with no context. Sorry, you get no context for this. She I'm trying to figure out a good place. She sped towards them, people. But even when the other racers took a step back, Cohen didn't budge, keeping a hold of her focus as she got close enough to their faces, that their faces were only a few inches apart. Was that good enough for you, little prince? She taunted. Cohen's eyes scorched her skin as he scanned her, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you act like you care what I think, Starling. He leaned in closer until their breaths intertwined. If you must know, he smirked, good enough isn't going to satisfy me when it comes to you. And I said, oh.
Wait.
I said, I don't even remember writing that, but that was kind of good.
What did my fingers just do? Oh.
I was like, oh, okay. I was like,
actually, speaking of that, sometimes I do impress myself because it's so easy to get a really like myopic focus on your book and just be like dissecting these specific lines or the scene and being like, oh, this is not what I think it should be.
Yes.
But occasionally I will get in my car, I will highlight my whole book in Google Docs. Mind you, half a book.
Yeah.
Maybe a fourth of a book because I haven't finished it. And then I'll hit speak and I'll go on like a drive or go pick up some things through a drive-through and just listen to my book.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget I'm listening to my own book because it feels like it could actually be something that I would pick up and listen to.
I think most of the time, if I feel like it's not good, I won't like work on it for a few weeks. I come back to it and I will do that. I'll start rereading it or something and going through it all. And I'm like, wait, this is actually a lot better than I remember.
Yeah.
Almost every single time, I'll always go back and be like, wait, this is actually better than I remember it being. You just kind of get like in a focus sometimes. I feel like when you're writing and you're like, I don't know if this is good or not. Like, I feel like this can't be good. And then it's like, you take a step back for a second, you listen to it or you read it again and you're like, oh, wait.
Honestly,
this really isn't that bad.
That is the thing that aspiring authors or, you know, active authors do not talk about enough. Is like, I feel like I have no grasp whether it's good or bad when it's coming from me. Like, I will read somebody else's book and be like, oh, this is good, this is bad, this is why I like it, this is why I don't like it. And then all of a sudden it's a paragraph written by me and I'm like, don't know. Could be terrible, literally. Could be freaking fantastic.
The one thing that I struggle with and we've talked about this before, one of my biggest insecurities is I'm very good at creating stories. I'm actually not very good at writing. My grammar and comprehension is very low. And so I have a hard time writing sometimes, especially when I'm writing fast. Like, I'm like, I don't care if this is spelled the wrong way or this grammar doesn't make sense. I will come back. But then sometimes I went back and reread some of my Wandering Stars and I read it out loud because you catch things a lot more when you read it out loud. And I was like, the amount of incoherent sentences there were, I was like, oh, it's like the concept is good, but like there was a lot of things that literally didn't make any sense. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go back and fix that at some point.
Oh, agreed. And honestly, I was just thinking about, we read our first lines of our book on our last one. And I just remember I was so embarrassed because it was so over the top for no reason that the minute we turned off the mics, I was like, Abby, we're going to have to refilm this. Like, this is terrible. But.
Oh, yeah, we should do that. Do you want to do that?
Wait, yes, but I want to read one other thing because I am so proud of myself because, once again, I'm terrible at dialogue. So anytime I have any modicum of dialogue that's just not horrific, I'm like, wow.
You're like, look at this.
But.
I'm dead.
Okay.
Go.
Can I read it to you?
Yes.
There is so much in between every single thing of dialogue that I'm just going to skip.
That's okay.
Okay. So, but the context of the story is she's running away. And she stops because she realizes she can't outrun the people chasing her.
Is this the fantasy book or the romance book?
Fantasy book.
Okay.
The prologue of it. But she stops. And then the general, the main guy chasing her, says, "Come home, Amara. I don't think you know the severity of your actions." And then he staggers back in way more words than that. But then she says, "Why don't you come a little closer, General? And maybe you can tell me a little bit more about the severity of my actions. Child, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into." What are you going to do? Kill me? Because last time I checked, I'm the only one who can wield your precious little trident and that actually makes me quite indispensable, doesn't it? And besides, I don't think the 5 would be too keen on the idea of you murdering their Nero wielder. But a useless general who is bested by a child, that idea they might be fond of. Stupid little girl. What did you call me? I'm not a little girl. I'm Nero. Boom. Trident explodes. So, General, are you going to let me go, or are you going to make me bathe you in your own blood before I do? I forgot, you probably don't hear that very often, do you? How long has it been since you've bled, General? Do you feel so invulnerable now? Do your worst. And then she says, "Father, forgive me." And then she kicks trash. But
I love it.
The whole, he staggers back and she's like, "Why don't you tell me a little bit more about the severity of my action?" I go, "Oh, that's so good."
I love when the sweet and innocent looking child, comes back with a bang.
Oh, yeah. And the are you gonna make me bathe you in your own blood before I do? I'm like, oh, that might be a little extra, but we love it.
You're like, this is a fantasy book. I can say whatever the frick I want.
Yeah.
I'm dead. Okay, I think we should end with reading the first lines of our books, but I want you
Both
to
of
read.
them?
Yeah, I want to read both of them.
Oh, golly. Okay, you go first. Though.
Okay, this is the first. Well, mind you, I wrote this down and then I have proceeded to not look back at this again. The main girl in my book is named Madeline. There's also a header in each of them that are collectively a letter. So it starts with Dear Madeline, da da da. But then it says, I should have taken my desire to walk barefoot in New York City instead of my heels as an almond to turn around and go back home to my sweet and lavish trashy TV. And that's all. But it goes on. It says, but I had shaved my legs and put on makeup, so I wasn't about to waste the very rare occasion of me getting ready.
Oh, wait. There were some big words in there. I love that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Guys.
On the other hand, this is the beginning of the prologue that you just heard some of it. But it just starts. Prologue, Amara, 586 AGK, 23 years ago. I'm drowning. My lungs seize as the wave of realization of what I'm about to do crashes into me. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I chant the words in a sodden song, only for the timbre. Nope. Timbre. Nope. What is that word when you're describing somebody's voice? Timbre. Whatever.
I don't know.
Of an unrelenting voice to rip me away from my coda's final few notes.
Wow.
Boom. Fantasy series.
See, you have cursive writing. For someone who doesn't like it, you have very cursive writing.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even pronounce timbre. What is the timbre? Like, the tamper! The tamper!
I literally don't know what this word is.
Oh my gosh, it's timbre.
You have such a broad vocabulary.
I said timbre? Oh! It's so bad.
I'm dead. Okay, and then the first line of my fantasy book is, the stars were glittering high and bright by the time Astrid Lucian decided that she was going to make terrible decisions that night.
Oh, I love a good terrible decision. Okay.
I love some good terrible decisions.
And then mine for my romance series is Chapter 1, Juliet POV Wednesday. I can't win Daytona if I'm in jail. I can't win Daytona if I'm in jail. I can't win Daytona if I'm in jail. Despite reciting my new personal mantra every morning and every night like a personal prayer, I can't help but let my anger slip in the direction of Boone, my stunt partner. Also, I realized I just used personal twice in that sentence, so we may need to rework that.
Wait, I like that. You're so good at writing first lines. That's probably the hardest thing for me. I have a really hard time writing the beginnings and ends of chapters. Like, how do I stop talking?
Oh.
And then how do I start talking? Like, both of those things are so hard for me.
Shut the front door. Let me cook right now.
Oh,
this is a strong... Actually, that might be generous. Okay. This is... Sorry, you guys are probably like, girls, get to the point. We really do not care.
Sorry, guys.
But Chapter 1 of my fantasy book. Chapter 1, Manzi, 609 AGK, present day. It starts, I'm an orphan of the perfect storm. 6 months ago, I watched my soul fracture into a million incongruent shards as I was bound by the invisible restraints of a duty I didn't even know I had. Since that day where my heart was forcibly ripped from my chest, I've been left hollow. My only sanctuary, the ravenous beast of my revenge-riddled mind. However, under the guidance of my uncle, I didn't let the monster consume me. Instead, I befriended it, letting it burrow in the recesses of my mind. Wait, watch, learn, it whispered. And then...
Why are you so good at this?
And then the end... In the end...
Oh, gosh.
Okay, I'm just gonna read. I only ask you to avoid the nose, please. I mutter half-heartedly as I close my eyes and await the oncoming pain. This is a small price to pay to sell the story that will get me into the academy. Apparently, he doesn't question my resignation much, because soon bone meets bone as his knuckles connect with my mouth. At least he saved my nose. That is the last thought before my world, or that is my last thought before my world is consumed in black. I'm an orphan created by the perfect storm, and today is the day I make my own.
Wow, that's so good.
A nice full
circle.
See, sometimes I go, wait, Did I just
You're
cook?
so funny about you. This is the funny thing about you, and this is the last thing I will say, is Leighton is so funny because she feels like you are so good at writing. Like, genuinely speaking, your quality of writing when you write is so good, and you have so great ideas. It's funny to me that you doubt yourself so much because I'm like, it's literally, your writing is absolutely amazing. You do have cursive writing. You use very big words, and you're very creative with your writing. So it makes me laugh when you're like, I just don't know how these people write these this way. I'm like, girl, but you are.
Wait, that is so nice of you to say, because sometimes I feel like I can have nice writing. It's just, I don't know if I have, like, the writing that has you hanging on your seat wanting to read more.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? But it's like, oh, it's nice and it's eloquent and it's well stated, but, like,
yeah,
there needs to be more to that to be a good book.
That's fair.
But I did cook on that chapter.
That was great. What's your lastly, like, what is your main goal? Like, do you, like, if you had to choose which book you want to finish by the end of the year, which one would it be?
Okay. I hate
Or, like, what's your
myself
hope?
for this. I hate myself for this because I'm going to say the fantasy book.
Wow.
And that's crazy because I think Abby had the most, like, the hottest take that was correct of maybe, you know, start small with, like, a standalone or a romance book. Something that you can be a little bit more grounded in.
Yeah.
And like I said, for me, writing romance comes pretty easy to me. I like to think because I could get to that, you know, 2,000 range pretty easy. Like, I wrote my 50,000 words that I have in a month and a half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Where I wrote the 25,000 words I have for my fantasy book in, like, 4 months.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. However, I think my idea for my fantasy book is really intricate and cool.
It is really cool.
And it's something that I would create that I feel like I would be more proud to put out and say, like, hey, I wrote this. However, it is scripted for a duology. And the fact that I'd have to write a second book is crazy. But
that's so valid.
Yes, I think the fantasy book is what I want to do. And I think my writing style suits fantasy a lot better. I actually, this is kind of a question for you too, but I had my fantasy book written in third person, present tense, similar to Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought my writing style worked way better for that than it does first person present tense. However, I feel like first person present tense is what people prefer.
Yeah.
And after I read, like, Powerless by Lauren Roberts and Akatar is first person present and I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I have to switch it. But now I'm thinking about switching it back to
so
third
this is
person.
Hilarious that you asked this because this time around when I rewrote Wandering Stars, it's been in third person. I changed it back to third person.
Shut the front door.
It's just so much easier when you are intending to write in multiple POVs. It's just so much easier to be able to switch between POVs faster and, like, within one chapter instead of having to be like chapter 1 Astrid, chapter 2 Castor. Like, I had so many increments that I wanted to write in characters POVs, but it wasn't necessarily like a whole chapter's worth of POVs. And then there was times where I was like, well, I want Cohen's perspective, but I only want Cohen's perspective for this one part. Similar to how, like, in Air of Fire, there's, like, one chapter or, like, a couple paragraphs where it's, like, just in Rowan's perspective, and then it indents and changes. Like, it was just kind of that. So I felt like I was gonna have a lot more freedom. And also, because I'm not very good at describing things, I just felt like it was gonna be easier for me not to have to deeply describe people's emotions so frequently in first person. I thought third person would kind of eliminate descriptions. Maybe I'm wrong, but
well, I feel like it doesn't necessarily eliminate descriptions. It just makes it so much easier because you can say, my main character's name is Manzi. Manzi looked at Merrick this way.
Yeah.
Merrick looked at her and explained exactly kind of how he reacted. Yeah. So it's just a lot more clear.
Yeah. So I have been rewriting it. I was thinking, again, I think it depends on what I've been reading at the time, but I think overall it was just easier for me to write in third person. But we'll see. But my romance is in first person. I would never write a romance book in third person.
Yes, my romance book is first person dual POV, which is not a profound thing. But for you, you're doing your If You Only Knew is what you're doing full time now.
I think for me, how you are already have a really good foundation of like your writing quality. Whereas I feel like I still have a long ways to go as far as like writing quality and like comprehension and grammar and all of those things. And so it's almost like if only you knew is kind of like my like practice, like my like practice to improve piece, where it's like I'm gonna write it to practice and learn how to write a book from beginning to end and do it in a good way and improve my writing. Because I mean, really, at the end of the day, you're gonna get better at writing by writing. So I'm kind of treating it as that. So my goal is to finish it and it be like edited and like feel like I can give it to people to read. Maybe not like by the end of the year.
Oh my gosh.
Which I think is very doable. But
I 100% agree. I think you could do that in a couple months. You're so fast at writing. Are you kidding me? But also, that is my dream, to have people read my book or even just like a couple chapters just to get a sense of like, hey, this is good. Or like, hey, this is kind of boring right out of the gate, or I have no idea what you're talking about, because I really have no grasp. Of course, I know what's going on, but I also forget. I know the 50-page outline and backstory, and I'm like, oh, did I completely forget to share that part with you?
Oh, 100%. So yeah, that's kind of my goal. I think I would like to keep slowly working on Wandering Stars, but it's not something that I'm super like. I'm not pushing myself on it.
You can do it when you're inspired to do it, and then do it for a week and make a good amount of progress, and then circle back to it.
The same way that people are mood readers, I feel like I am a mood writer. Oh, so that's 100%. Why we got 2 different projects going on at the same time. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. Sorry that was a little bit longer, but we hope you guys enjoyed our little chat about writing. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys follow us on all of our social media platforms. It's just at Ellie Reads Podcast. And we will see you all next week. Bye!